And it's also, I also want to give an opportunity for the folks who've been in direct conversation about in the direct negotiations, which I have not been. I've had one conversation with Mr. Cavill and Shambe, one conversation, but they've primarily been negotiating, and that's the closest you're going to hear, to my opinion, with city staff. So they've been in conversation with the mayor and the city staff who've been drafting the city's term sheet. So I just wanted to say that for the record. I did have Veronica Cummings, one of the departments that is, well, she's part of one of the departments that's been negotiating. She's going to come here and answer any detailed questions because once again, I haven't been a part of the negotiations. But first, I just want to hear from y'all. So can I get a show of hands? Did I say thank y'all for coming? Thank y'all for showing up so early on a Saturday morning. Number one, I honestly didn't think folks would be like, oh, so it's too early. I know I haven't eaten yet, and I would have had food if we weren't still dealing with this whole virus thing that's clearly still impacting people. Um, Otherwise, I would have treated you all to some delicious pastries and things. That said, thank you all seriously for coming out this early on a Saturday. I want to hear from y'all, and we can go ahead and get started. So, can I get a show of hands for people who live in West Oakland or in District? Oh, look, here, put them down. Put them down. Who doesn't live in? Oh my! It's just a handful. All right, so let's start lining up. I'm ready. I'm ready to start listening. So you're gonna come right to this microphone, or you can stand up if your voice carries, or it could put it closer there. Um, and yeah, I want to hear what you have to say. We're gonna try to give people 3 minutes each. I'm trying to. Well, I think we might have a little more time because the group is not terribly large. Just share with me what is your perspective based on what you know, based on the facts. If you want to share with me your feelings, that's fine too. But as much as possible, based on what you know from the information that's accessible to you, what is your perspective on the development for this project? That cool? All right. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Oh, don't be shy. Don't be shy at all.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Regina Davis. I live right here on Chestnut. And I am here this morning because I've participated in some of the A's public meetings. I'm also a real estate developer on an active project here at the West Oakland BART station. So I just wanted to share a little comparison notes in terms of what's being required of developers here in West Oakland. So the um, so in terms of our development uh, at West Oakland, we're required to do 30% affordability in our housing development. We're also, even when we started to engage in this project because it's BART land, there was an issue of whether the land would be leased to us long term or we could purchase it. BART decided that we could not purchase the land, we had to lease it. Um, and so my question, so there was never a question of whether there'd be any discounted land, which is what has been the conversation with the A's. As some of you know, the county has discounted land to them. Public agencies really should not be discounting land. It's a precious commodity that we have, and once it's gone, it's gone. The second issue is the tax abatement, and so for a lot of us, we remember redevelopment, right? Some people saying yes, we remember redevelopment. Well, the EIFD, in short, is tax increment financing, which means that the money that they would have paid for taxes goes back into their development, right? So above the value that's created. And in the long term, That's millions and millions and millions of dollars. And those are dollars that city actually doesn't need. So, and that's thinking about this conversation. You see this survey that I think you were all given, which talks about community benefit. Well, that sounds like a nice thing, but the truth is just pay taxes. So the underlying, which is what we all, how many people here pay taxes in Oakland? Exactly. Why should the A's not pay taxes in Oakland? Um, and I'm welcome them if they will pay taxes and pay a fair price for the lease or for the sale of the land. These are just the basic economics of being a real estate developer. Um, I probably my 3 minutes are up, and so the last thing I would say is, I hope you will all come out to many of the town halls that we've had as private developers for the West Oakland BART station, where we're creating a community oriented retail, office, and housing development there. Many of us have suffered through basically the underdevelopment of West Oakland itself, and we need a place where we can have a center. Thank you.
Hello, excuse me. My name is Lycan. I live at 21st and Myrtle in West Oakland. And firsthand, I had a warehouse space, a community cultural center in San Francisco at Folsom and Beale, which is right near where Candlestick was. That neighborhood was made up of a lot of small businesses. A lot of those businesses, those workers lived in San Francisco. So if you look at how business works and pollution and everything going, this was really a positive. I'm speaking on behalf of my observation of my life experience of watching when Candlestick was moved to McCovey Cove and what happened to our neighborhood. All those working class jobs disappeared. All the poor Filipino people that used to live in that part of South of Market, all were by gentrification forced out. And any community benefits that were supposedly made with the A's, I mean, not the A's, with the Giants, to benefit the neighborhood weren't kept, and it took legal action. So it shouldn't be that somehow these community benefits are this ambiguous term. They don't have to follow them. That memorandums of understandings aren't really binding contracts. If then, to get them to do it, we, the poor working class people of those communities, have to sue these, I call them developers, not developers, run rabid. And I feel that also downtown, the mayor, the city administrator, and basically the Democratic Party, I'm a socialist and a Green Party member, are selling us to developers who are big Democratic Party funders. And we, this last time, elected Carol against the real estate back Lynette Gibson McElhaney. So we need to keep this kind of momentum going for West Oakland and protect working class neighborhoods. And the last thing I want to bring up is the term affordability, what they call affordable housing. Affordable to who? On what demographic is this decided? When they decide it's affordable compared to a whole pile of money all divided up, it's not affordable to most working class people in Oakland. And we have to change that criteria of what is considered affordable. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Melody Davis. Okay, hi. My name is Melody Davis, and I'm a resident of West Oakland. And I just want to say this, and I hope you guys can hear me clear with this mask on. Okay. Yes, we can hear you fine. It's a horrible deal. Any way you look at it, it is a horrible deal. I am not against the A's. I buried my grandfather in the A's outfit because he took all the grandchildren to the A's game. He took them all. He loved the A's. So I'm not against the A's. I'm against what they doing. They doing it to us. And he talking about the fort. Why do the people that live 1.5 miles, look, read it, people who live 1.5 miles away from Howard Terminal, they'll get taxed 2 times. We're getting taxed on Campbell, Willer, where I live at, Wood Street. But the people from Oak Street all the way to Mandela is getting taxed again. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. This is ridiculous, and they need to be shamed, but they're not because they're developers. I have a nephew that's a developer, millionaire, billionaire, and we can't talk for 2 minutes, and I hang up on him. You know what I'm saying? Because he's not for us. And he told me the game. He used to play for the A's. He knows them. He told me the game. But the big thing about it, you guys, turn this thing down. Tell them if they want to stay here, they can stay at the Coliseum and do the state of art. That's right. Coliseum there. They have enough acres where they can put what all they want on there. The 400-room condo, the hotel, like we need a hotel, but that's right, all up and down Hagenberger, there's a lot of hotels there. If you want to put a 5-star one in, then fine. Okay, fine. We treat ourselves, if we can even get in there, you guys. Can any of us get in there? No. How about the luxury condos? See, they at the beginning, they start saying luxury. Now, towards the end, they're saying affordable. Those are trickery words. Trickery words. Look at it. Since I've been in politics since 2018, I look at each word. Each word, those are trickery words. You guys, come on now. And jobs, those jobs are temporary. Once they build that building, they don't have no job, you guys. Come on now. And I have seen, now that right there should say, who are they giving the jobs to? Okay? Who are they giving those jobs to? I heard a trickery on that. Those developers, by them being private, they can hire who they want. Come from up from Redland, Sacramento, anywhere but here. Come on now. Come on now. We got to wake up. This is a horrible deal. I can't put it no better. It's a horrible deal, you guys. People had those cohorts. I was in one of them. Okay, I just want to say one. I was in a one called education cohort. I said, what the education got to do with baseball? I went to a couple of meetings. You know what they said about the children in West Oakland? That they were disoriented. They talked so bad about our children, grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. That was included in that bunch. That's what they said about the education for our children. And that made me very upset now to go back to no more meetings. I'm not going to have nobody talk about what belongs to me. Time is up. Guess what? Who's next? All right, bye-bye.
No, I saw you.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Wright. I'm with the IOWU, Local 10. We work as longshoremen here in the port. And first of all, I would like to thank Carol for having this forum. Appreciate it. I'm excited to meet her today. As a longshoreman and a business agent at Local 10, we've been working against this project from the start. 2019, my partner Mel and I were up in Sacramento quite often working against these bills to have the public lands that are your port transferred to private. We were working against the bill to create the EFID, the financing tax district, and what people really need to realize is that Howard Terminal, despite what Libby Schaff is saying, despite what Dave Cavall and even the Port Commission, which are appointed by Libby, Howard Terminal is essential for our port. And the reason why is we're shaped in the shape of a crescent moon. And Howard Terminal is right at the tip of that. And all the traffic of the port, a majority of it, goes out right past Howard Terminal. Okay? The trains go through there, the trucks go through there, and the ships turn there. Everything, and it's an essential buffer. Not only that, 300,000 truck moves go in and out of Howard Terminal every year. Those trucks used to park here in West Oakland. And through the Port Efficiency Task Force, which Mel headed up with the Port of Oakland and the other trucking companies and whatnot, they set that up to get these trucks off your streets, okay? If we lose that, we're gonna have those trucks with nowhere to go. Right now, they leave the port, and if there's a lot of traffic, they can stop at Howard Terminal and wait. They can stage containers there and wait till the evening to start taking them out to the, to the valley, to Nevada, whatnot. It's really helping. This community is helping every community that needs to transport themselves after work during rush hour, right? There's so much to talk about with this. It's hard to, after 3 years of this, it's hard to know where to begin. I mean, as an Oakland resident, born and raised, the A's are asking for $855 million. And Oakland will be on the hook for that. Have we not learned from the Raiders? Have we not learned? We owe $100 million right now on the stadium from the Raiders. They're gone. This is nothing but a land grab. If they get $855 million, they're going to get the Oakland Coliseum land with that. They're going to get the Howard Coliseum. They're going to build condos in the Oakland Coliseum. That's 150 acres. It's just a big giveaway to a billionaire. Yeah. There's no other way to put this. Now, this is just as an Oakland resident. Last year in December, Libby Schaaf, she cut the Oakland fire, cut the Oakland police, blamed the city council for it. How are you going to raise $855 million and be cutting at the same time cutting the Oakland the police and fire? It just doesn't make sense. It's one thing I want you to recognize, and I'll wrap it up with this. This port, I just did orientations. We just hired 500 new part-time workers into the port. We promoted 300 into membership in our local. Of those 300, I was the clear minority, okay? I did all the orientations. 90% were Black and brown people, okay? These are working class people. They get very good jobs. Your only requirement is that you're 18, pass a drug test, and have a driver's license, right? I mean, that's your requirement to come in. They will be trained on the job, these new hires. And, starting wage is $33 an hour, okay? I don't know hot dog vendors that make that much money, all right? The ILWU and longshoremen have been a pillar of this community for decades before I was even born. My father was longshoreman. He started in 1969. This job raised me up. The port here, I would argue one day of economic activity in the port is more than 44 home games that the A's will bring, right? If it's retail, manufacturing, or agriculture, you must realize that this port is a part of it, and it's essential to our economy, not just for Oakland. We're talking the whole region. If this port project, you put thousands of game day commuters in front of trains, in front of our trucks. They want to put bicycle lanes right in our truck lanes. going to be a disaster for the port. We will not be able to move cargo, which is what our business is. Anyway, with that, I'll let it go. But thank you very much.
Sanitation is key.
It is. Thank you.
Sanitation is key.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa Coleman, and I am a resident of Acorn. And I'm sorry for being late, Carol, and thank you for everything that you've done for us. Oh, I need to get closer to this. You see that I sprayed it? I'm like, can I be heard?
Yes.
All righty. I'm from San Francisco originally. This is my second tour in Oakland. Thank you. I love you, Oakland, with the sun. Yes, it's beautiful. But I'm going to use San Francisco as my example. I come from Hunters Point, which is a public housing site. You know, we have the largest in California, 7,000 plus units. Or should I say we had? A developer by the name of Lennar, who's a good friend of Libby Schaff's, and Willie Brown, and Charlie Walker. You know the guys and girls. And I was doing community organizing. Little young, dumb girl, just doing my thing. And all of a sudden, these developers and mayors, and they seized on us. They needed me to go away. They didn't need public housing in San Francisco to come up. They didn't need the people to come up. They needed our land. They wanted us out. And that city was at that time probably 98% African American in public housing throughout the city. So they came up with a master plan, regardless to how environmentally toxic it was, for land grabs. So you will bear witness today. Campbell Village, Cypress Village, Towers, and Acorn are all being seized on by private developers right now to be sold on the open market. You know, in the HUD game, back in the day, they signed 99-year leases to do their programs, right? Renewed money, renewed money, renewed money. They don't want that money no more. They want the luxury condos, the malls, the bicycle lanes. And do they care about the residents of West Oakland? No. Tax you? Yeah. Break you? Yeah. Kill you? They don't mind. They need your land for pretty Oakland. You know, the new construction that's not worth anything. Developing a toxic site, which we know the port is extremely toxic, as well as our surrounding Oakland. And they don't care about your environmental impacts. And for Ms. Schaff, I'm confused, so I'm not going to blame the lady or say anything, but she confuses me as a businesswoman. She's never had the foresight to make a good deal or a good decision. She's not very good in that department. And so I wouldn't trust anything that she's, signing. That's like signing right along with Trump. They're just going right ahead and do what they want to do. I urge the residents of West Oakland and Oakland in general, you're divided. You're not unified. And you're a strong, proud place of people. So I'm going to encourage you to continue to meet, to continue to get on your city's backside and watch them like a hawk. Because as my sister said, who spoke earlier, that word game, that vocabulary game they play on us, affordable housing. Well, my meeting on July 8th, I was presented with a proposal by a developer whom which I've never seen to rehab Acorn. His priority was my streets, my trees, and outside of my units. Not demolish the units and rebuild them, not rehab the physical structures that we live in. He wants to put green, pretty sidewalks, cross paths, pavement, fencing, lighting, bike lanes. And so the residents, this is the first time they're hearing about it. And I want to say this, that in West Oakland, especially where I live, we get no information. I thank you, Carol, and your team. This is the first time in my 8 years here that I've been invited to come to something that the city was talking about. And I'm very known, well known. And I'm on that little social stuff, so you can send me an invite anytime you want to hear from Acorn. But no, because we have people who are paid off to keep us silent and ignorant while they sign off on these deals. And they have done that already With Acorn, it's going down. Pay attention. They've already signed the deal. We're looking for the contracts and whatnot. We're just now coming aboard. So I really encourage you guys, let's watch out for each other. Let's watch out for our community. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel. I am the cleanup guy around Oakland. I think you probably see me around Wood, Mandela. I'm on the fence about this whole project. I don't like a team that's going to hold a city hostage to have, their thing built. If you build it, we'll stay. If you don't, we're going to go. But, I get jobs. I'm a union guy. I get that. When they built, this is why I'm on the fence a little bit. I want to make sure that they have an infrastructure that's going to bring traffic to a minimum, transportation to get people in and out of there. I know it's going to create jobs. The Union Labor Council supports this. I don't know what the port guy was talking about, but there's a support from the union on this.
No, not the longshore.
No, not the long. I'm not talking about the longshoremen. I'm talking about the Labor Council. Okay. Just let me finish what I have to say here. Please. When they built the ballpark over in San Francisco, they did have a certain amount that was low income, and I even told a coworker who was a security guard. I said, "Girl, get on over there." She actually got in, and every day she thanked me. She's like, "Oh my God, thank you. Every day I have a beautiful home. I can afford it. My kids love it. They have a great community that they're living in."
Bluetooth pairing.
So, there's good and bad. Get it. I get it. And, is this going to get built? It probably will, because we can bitch and complain all we want. Money talks. And that's all I want to say. I just want to make sure that there's not going to be traffic jams up and down our streets. And I'm all for bike lanes. I'm a cyclist. Thank you.
Are we done?
No.
Maybe if y'all want to, if you don't have to line up, but if you want to line up socially distance, so I know who the speakers are, that could help too.
For the new people who just arrived, can you let them know that you're listening to constituents of D3 first?
Yes.
West Oakland here.
Hi, my name's William Chorno. I've lived on 32nd in Chestnut since 1990. Since I've been there, West Oakland has been devastated. On my block, which is a long block, there's no odd streets coming through, so it's a 2-block block. The Coates across the street from us are the only people on our block that have been there longer than 1990. Everybody else has been pushed out. It's awful. And this development is going to be more of the same. It's going to be more traffic, more pollution, and more luxury condos, and more real estate increases. I was here when they rerouted the freeway, and Caltrans didn't want to put in an off-ramp at Market Street. They said it could not be done safely. It was substandard. The community fought for that off-ramp for local traffic. But if you think about it, when you're coming up 880, you pass Broadway. If you're coming up from the south, you pass the Broadway exit. And then right away, you've got people going off on 980. And then in no distance at all, people are going off on Market Street. And the cars are all shuffling like this right now. It's already, a semi-dangerous situation. So now they're going to bring up all the traffic coming up from the south on 880 is going to get off on the Market Street off-ramp. It's going to back up past the 980 interchange, block where traffic gets on and off at Broadway. And how are they going to mitigate that? There's no mitigation for it. The A's are trying to buffalo the city. They're saying there's all this press about how the city's dragging its feet, how the city's not doing this, how the city's not doing that. The A's haven't provided the economic benefit, economic information you need to evaluate that stadium. The A's haven't provided a final environmental impact report. There's been no study on the impacts on West Oakland. There's no final traffic study to show whether or not these people coming in from 3 different directions are going to paralyze downtown. The people coming down from 80 are going to have to get off by the post office on 7th Street, and then drive all the way down 7th Street to get to Market. So I just don't see how there's, how mitigation is possible. Now the city's getting ready to sign a term sheet. We've been asking around amongst people that are experts in community benefit agreements. And when you ask them how many deals have not gone through after a term sheet's been negotiated, they can't come up with any. Okay, so the city staff can talk about how this is not a final agreement or it's not binding or all this, but once you have a term sheet, you're saying that you're moving into final negotiations. And how do you move into final negotiations without all of the information you need to make a decision? How do you even know what to negotiate over? Okay, so thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Balderston. I'm a member of the Oakland Education Association, a longtime teacher in Oakland. I confess in East Oakland and not West Oakland, but nonetheless, for 23 years, most in the Castlemont High School. And even now, I'm still, quasi-retired, formerly doing organizing work for the OEA. But I'm not here to speak officially on behalf of the OEA. And I am a delegate to the Labor Council, and I'm not going to certainly attempt to speak for the whole Labor Council. But I just want something to be clear. Number one, the OEA has shown solidarity on this and a number of other issues with Local 10, and we will continue to show solidarity with Local 10. Number two, there was considerable debate last Monday at the Labor Council. And there's not been unanimity. Without getting into stereotypes, it's obvious that the main pushers of this are the building trades. Now, at times they've done good things and things I could agree with, but at times they would sell their souls if they were able to get more jobs. And the jobs are important. There's no question about that. But the question is, what it's doing to other employment, what it's doing to housing. And I think that, we have to continue to stand strong. I'm a lifelong, well, not lifelong, but since I've lived in the Bay Area, an A's fan. I live near the Coliseum. If the issue was just a stadium, this thing would be resolved already. If that was the only question, it's clear that this is about development, about high-priced housing, and we can't allow them to use the A's as a shield. It's really about Mr. Fisher and his greed. Thank you.
We have Carol.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Yes, I live on Filbert at 10th, so about half a mile from the project site as the crow flies. And I'm here to speak in favor of it. And I have a couple of reasons that I want to offer. First of all, I think that the idea that this project, I think, would somehow displace the economic activity of the port or compromise that, I'm not sure I buy it, because Howard Terminal right now is not generating any economic activity. It's a parking lot. There's no opportunity cost for this project. Nobody shouted down the other side.
No one's shouting, sir. Just please continue.
We're here to have a civil discourse. People listen
Keep
respectfully
going.
to both sides. So, yeah, my name is Peter. Absolutely. It's not generating any economic activity at this point right now. In terms of transportation, there are two BART stations that are equidistant from where the BART station is to Oracle Park in San Francisco. And somehow that city has been able to figure out, I'm not saying that traffic is easy there, having gone to the A's Giants game there a couple weeks ago, but they have been able to figure that out, right? And so I don't believe that the transportation nightmare will come to pass. Third of all, in terms of the effects of new development on potential displacement, on potential rising costs of living in this area, I would just offer facts in midst of this discourse. I want to cite a paper that was published by a woman who just received her PhD from UC Berkeley and who is now working for the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the Census Bureau. And it states that the effects of new development, new construction within the immediate area, this is an empirical question, right, are as follows. New construction, market rate construction, looking at parcel level data. She finds that rents fall by 2% for parcels within 100 meters of new construction. The renters' risks of being displaced to lower income neighborhoods falls by 17%. And both effects decay to zero within a mile and a half. So where we're standing right now, there's likely to be zero effect of this project on the cost of housing, on the cost of living here. And for, science and facts matter. All the signs that I see in people's front yards pointing to this house believes in science, I'm suggesting that to you right now. Finally, in terms of community benefits, I think there's a very robust and important discussion to be had about community benefits and affordable housing and what's in it for the city. But I do think that there's also the community benefit that comes with the intangible of civic pride and pride behind a baseball team, pride behind something we can rally behind as a city. Think of what the Warriors did a few years back for this city when they were on their championship run. And I think that's important for a city. And so thank you very much.
Can you cite the author of your study?
Kate Pennington.
Wasn't about a ballpark. Hi, my name's Chris Roberts. I live at 10th Street in Clay, downtown. I've been in District 3 for over 20 years. I don't like this project. It doesn't pass the smell test. It just doesn't. It's about the condos. It's about the condos. 3,000 condos at market rate with beautiful views across the bay. This is big money. The A's, so the A's can leave town in 20 years as they wish, and they've got the condos. This is about giving away the waterfront. And I don't see community benefits of any measure. And, well, that's just putting it right there. I could go on for 10 minutes and give you 20 reasons why this is a bad project. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Lowe. I'm one of the guys who was able to serve on the Howard Terminal Community Benefits Agreement Steering Committee. The steering committee is down now to about 16, 20 people. But it started out with lots and lots of folks that were assembled by the mayor, and most notably Veronica here, who ran a very straightforward and organized means of trying to get everybody to understand what the community benefits could be and how they could all agree on what should happen. Thank you. And so, pretty strong community voice. I think, because everybody there was a volunteer, no one was paid to be there, and we met often. And we, unfortunately, the plague kind of destroyed a lot of the energy that we had in trying to bring together these ideas and figure out what was going on. So we now have the community benefits agreement that we're hoping to move forward with. The most difficult one, I think, because I was part of the transportation cohort with Mercedes there, was sort of separating out what is a community benefit with respect to transportation and what is a regional benefit. One of the guys here earlier said that this is going to be a nightmare down there, and I agree. I don't think that it can be unscrambled without really giving it a lot more consideration than just the term sheet says. And that means that we're going to have, in order to make the community benefits agreement come true, a sort of like the project area committee used to be for redevelopment here in West Oakland. I don't know how many of you participated in the WOPAC or remember it or remember any of the people that were there. But
You're at time.
well, I just have one more thing to say then.
Sure.
Above and beyond all this is that we're looking forward now to doing something for the environment. Something that should have been done a long time ago, but won't be done unless we have this project to start in motion the idea that there should be a more comprehensive view of our waterfront and how it should come together. And I think that that's going to push this new district that's going to be formed, the EITF, into a circumstance where all the money that has to go into transportation or anything else that this EITF will be looking at, we'll have to have an environmental undertone, or whatever the word is, because if it doesn't, then what we're doing is creating an ecological nightmare. And this kind of unity in surrounding the ballpark with this new district will come over and make the port begin to think about being, in comparison to the greenest ballpark in baseball, which is what the developers have promised to bring.
Steve, I'm going to have to, you can come back if we don't have more folks, but I want to give Veronica an opportunity to speak from the.
Yeah, I'd like that too.
All right, thank you.
But I just want you to think about the environment here. This is something that Oakland can really do and contribute to the Bay Area economy. Otherwise, it won't happen. Just like everything else we don't have.
Thank you.
Okay, so but before we speak, I do want to acknowledge some very important people that are here with us today. He's giving me this, like, don't say anything. I have to honor the pastor who opened up the space to allow us to use this today. So I have to honor Pastor Anthony Jenkins of Taylor Memorial Church. So thank you. Pastor, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm good. Well, yes.
Of course, he's a pastor.
Right. You shouldn't ask a pastor if they want to speak. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming. I also want to acknowledge all of our neighbors, because we do have neighbors that work, that go to school, and they've gotten up and, you know, allowing us that live here in West Oakland to let our voice be heard, no matter what side we're on. You know, we came together to hear each other's voices. So I appreciate the patience and love that's shown to both sides. I also want to say this. We have a city councilwoman named Carol Fife that gave us and brought us together, and I've never seen it. She came down here where some of us could not make it during the week because of work to go to City Hall. She gave us this space to come together to hear voices. So let's give her applause, okay?
Good evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Melvin McKay. I'm also a longshoreman here in the Oakland, San Francisco area. This is the first time in a year and a half we've actually been able to come together and listen to one another, and I appreciate that. But when I first started on the opposition of the Oakland A's coming to the Howard Terminal, they first tried to go to Laney College, shot down. Okay, it wasn't a drag down 3-year fight, right? 52 years ago, I played in that hole called the Oakland Coliseum. That was my hole. That was my baseball field. When I started out there, we had White Front over there. We had home base. We had Malibu Raceway. They pushed everyone out. They put an extension to BART. For who? The Oakland A's, for the baseball teams, right? When I bought my first house at 19 years old, $22,000. My second, $25,000. Now they talk about affordable housing. Who can afford them? Okay. When you look at the condominiums they want to build here in this community, the only thing I can talk about is gentrification. There's not one of your kids that are going to be able to afford anything over there. Right now, houses is out of this market right now. You can't afford it, right? But then I want to ask the question, where would you guys go for your goods once the port is disrupted? What would happen to the mom and pop stores you go to right now? Okay, they will have to put a surplus on them for the goods that they receive today. There's no way that they can afford to keep the store open and not charge you. One thing I do know, when we first started this fight, the Oakland A's projected there'll be 6,000 jobs for the West Oakland residents. How many people have been to an apprentice program? How many? Have they even opened up an apprentice program for the city of West Oakland? Okay, one of the things I do know, there's false prophet in some of the things that they say. And when we first started this fight, it was about a baseball stadium, period. The next thing I know, they run to Rob Bonta, Nancy Skinner, to draft laws to move away Tideland Trust from the waterways. Why did they do that? It's only for the condominiums. Nobody here understands, and I gotta praise Margaret Gordon, under EPA laws, to get these trucks off the streets, off of your city streets, and in your backyard, to make them go and refurbish their emission controls, not to be idling. We got the only Go Green ships in the nation. Every one of our ships have to be plugged in, okay? All these trucks that we're talking about at Howard Terminal, they're off your city streets. They move your goods from one sector and one sector alone. But you know what's gonna happen here? The faith is, if this goes through, 50 years, your grandkids will lose immensely. Because I'll tell you what happens. Under the noise ordinance law, the people that purchase those condominiums are going to carry foul about the noise that we make on the terminals. And they'll go back to the city council and says, you got to stop this crap. I work night and day. They're working night and day. I can't do it any longer. And the city council will say, you got to stop this noise, guys. And what they do to over here to San Jose, 10 o'clock curfew. Can't have a game. Can't do shit. No more. You can't do anything. No entertainment after 10 o'clock. You got to cease. That will happen in the city of Oakland. If we continue going down this road, that community benefit they talk about is not worth the paper it's written on. It's not a contract. Because I'll tell you right now, you got 1 million people that got to sign it. Okay? It's all conjecture. You got nothing. Well, I'll tell you like this here. If we keep on with the pros and cons of what's going to happen at the Howard Terminal, let us stay where you can move your goods. We're the 3rd largest terminal in the world. moving cargo. We break records for the last 7 years. Since we put those trucks over at Howard Terminal to be it's a catch and pitch yard. So they're not on the city streets. But people got to understand right now, all we want to do is live in peace. They can build that ballpark at 175 acres opposed to 52 acres. Thank you.
We're debating on which mic to use. So this is Veronica Cummings. She works with the city of Oakland, and she is the stakeholder engagement lead that's been working on this project and part of the community benefits since the beginning? More or less since the beginning. So what, 20 years now? Oh. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Veronica because she has some of the nuanced details about this project, and if you have questions, she's much better poised to answer them than I am. So one of the things, EITF, you got to explain some of EITF, EFD, IFD, RCA, VCR. If you could explain some of these terms in your presentation, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's so good to see all of you in person. It's been, we know forever since we've had this opportunity. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know a lot of you through the community benefits process that several of the speakers have referenced. So thank you very much for your engagement and for being here. As Councilmember Fife said, my name is Veronica. I'm with the City Administrator's Office, and I'm on the project team for this, representing the city. Now, one thing that I do want to just go ahead and establish in terms of baselines is that this is not a city project. So this is, in a lot of ways, when you have a developer who wants to come in and develop, the city does work with the developer on the things that that this project encompasses. And then there are some unique, very big, unique components of this project. So let me go ahead and dive right in. On the city's part, when we're looking at this project, it's really important for us to follow the North Star that we've had throughout this process. I've been on this project for, though it feels like 20 years, it's been about 2.5 years. And just looking at this, internally, we have a lot of discussions. And for us, number one, we don't want to make repeat mistakes from previous sports deals. In working on this, we don't want to be left holding the bag. So for us, when we're crafting, when we're negotiating, it's really important for us to protect the taxpayers. And so we are working to make sure that the general fund is protected. And so one of the ways of doing that is through the formation of that, it's an EIFD, the Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District. And if you, how many people have how many people feel like they understand what an EIFD is? Because that's going to determine how much I go into detail. Okay, so about maybe 35% of you. So the majority of you don't understand or feel confident. So what that means is you have a site like the Howard Terminal where a district will be formed to capture taxes that the project or development could generate above what the existing tax baseline is. So right now, the Howard Terminal, that would be the EIFD district that'd be created. And right now, the city of Oakland collects about $73,000 annually at the Howard Terminal site. And that figure is determined based on what the current valuation is of the site. And right now, the Howard Terminal site, it's assessed at about $29 million. So if this project were to be built out, that assessed value would go from $29 million up to a projected $7.3 billion. So just right away, all that tax increment, that would normally be directed to the general fund. And in creating an EIFD, that money then would be earmarked, if you will, so that it is paying for. In this case, it would be the Howard Terminal infrastructure. But with EIFDs, you can actually have an EIFD created, then you can set aside the money for a different part of the city. But for this project, it's going to be on the Howard Terminal site. So that money, it is the tax revenue from an EIFD. It would be project generated, and in the case of Howard Terminal, because right now the owner of the land, there's only one property owner, whereas if you were to look at like an EIFD, that would be, if it was created in the Jack London district, for example, there are multiple property owners, so it complicates things. But in the case of Howard Terminal, there's just the one site. That money, it would go from $73,000 to several millions of dollars, and that would go right back into paying for the infrastructure and other EIFD eligible costs. Let's see, the EIFD, that would be around for 45 years, and then after the 45 years, that tax increment would go right back into the general fund. So that's a EIFD 101, and all of the information that I'm talking about right now, it is on the City of Oakland's website, so you can find all the information plus more. I heard concerns about the transportation traffic, and so that is studied in what's called the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, and right now we're still going through the response to public comment. So the EIR, that's required through, it's called CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, and CEQA requires that if you have a project, certainly of this size, that has the potential to have environmental impacts, then a study has to be done that's studying things like the transportation component. And so right now, the EIR, that was published in February of this year, and there was a period of time for the public to read the EIR, respond to the analysis done. And so right now, the city, we are reviewing the comments, we're studying, and then we're studying certainly the points that are addressed in the comments, and then we're going to go ahead and respond to that. That's a very long process. Right now, we're anticipating at the soonest that response to comment period won't end until October at the soonest. Okay, this is a very complicated project, but one of the components of the EIR is the transportation, the traffic, etc. So I would encourage you. It is admittedly a very long document, but the transportation, the areas that were studied, they are included in that. The EIR does include what's called impacts, and then it does address, what could be done to mitigate those impacts. It's all in there. But one thing I do want to also address is with the transportation component, that part of this project we includes what's called a transportation management plan, or TMP, and that's where it will be studied throughout the duration of this project. Certainly during the first year, should this go through, that's where there will just be many evaluations and assessments of how the transportation is going, what could be done to improve it, etc. And part of that transportation management plan does involve having community members to serve on, even though it's not right now, the title is not decided, but it would be on some type of advisory committee where if, for example, D3 residents, there would be an opportunity for D3 residents to serve on this committee to then say how the traffic transportation plan, et cetera, could be improved, what's going wrong, what's going right, et cetera. Let's see. So I also want to address the community benefits because I see several of the steering committee members who were involved in that 2-year process. And I also see the stakeholders and community members. A lot of you were involved in that. It was a long process. So right now, the way that the city project staff views it, the community benefits falls into 3 buckets. We did work very hard. It was a multi-stakeholder process. Community members came up with a very comprehensive and ambitious list of recommendations. And so from that, we compartmentalized it into 3 buckets, which are affordable housing, the jobs component, and then lastly, the idea of what staff is recommending to create a community fund, because one of the things that community has said throughout this process was that So community benefits are typically like a one and done approach where you have a developer go in, they throw some money at the community. Usually it's done during the construction period, and then that's it, right? So even though the project will be around for years and decades. And so what we've heard loud and clear from community is that any community benefits associated with this project should last for the entirety of the lease. And so this is a 66-year lease that the A's would have with the port. And so the community fund is a way to provide ongoing funding so that those initial recommendations, as well as future recommendations, they can be realized. Part of the funding proposal is through this EIFD, and there are limitations of funding community benefits through the EIFD because the EIFD only allows for capital projects, so physical buildings, roads, et cetera, to be funded. And so with this community fund, that would allow for things like the programs that communities recommended, things that are non-capital projects. It would allow for the funding, but not only that, it's really difficult right now for us to know what community would need in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So by having this community fund that project staff were recommending, it allows for the community benefits to develop, be realized, et cetera, for the entirety of the lease, while using the list of the initial recommendations to guide us to set the criteria of how funds should be allocated, what should be allocated, et cetera. So that right now, I'm going to finish because that's a lot of information, and I do appreciate your attention. But I do want to remind everybody that this information is all posted to the project webpage as well as the community benefits webpage. I post them, so they're all there. So it's a lot of material to read. I'm also available if I do a lot of stakeholder meetings, one-on-one, and groups, et cetera. I'm happy to have more detailed conversations about the project components. But for now, I'll go ahead and stop and take questions. Okay, let's see how we do this.
Are there folks who have questions who have not spoken yet? I see you, Melody. I see you, Bill. Yes, your name? Right here. Yeah.
My name is Kristen, and I just wanted to say that the $400 million that's proposed in community benefits, if that's divided over 66 years, that's only about $6 million a year. $6 million right now isn't much, and in 66 years, it's going to be nothing.
So, Kristen, was that correct?
Yes.
Did everybody hear Kristen? No, some folks in the back didn't hear. So the question that Kristen asked was, it's been discussed that the community benefits are totaling $400 million. And over the course of 66 years, that is $6 million per year. And in tomorrow's dollars and next year's dollars, that will be even less. So the question is it?
It's a comment.
It's just a comment?
What to do about it?
What do we do? Are you asserting that that's just not enough?
No, I don't believe that's enough.
Kristen does not believe that that's enough. So that was just a statement. Are there any other comments or questions or statements? Okay, so folks it's the same folks. Oh, back here? It's a new person. Do you live in District 3?
I do. I live on the other side of the state, and I have a couple questions. One is how, given what was said before about vocabulary, how is affordability defined? Is public comment still open on the EIR? And is it conceivable or is it feasible to separate the stadium from the condo development? Because it sounds like the issues are related but not the same. It might be resolved differently, or one might be approved and one not, or
Okay, thanks for your questions. So I heard, how is affordability defined? And then the second one is public comment for the EIR is still open. And then third, can this project happen, separate ballpark and the mixed use development? Okay, so with the definition of affordability, so this project does include, it proposes up to 3,000 residential units. And of that, just bluntly, looking at the economics of the project right now, our city staff is recommending at minimum to have 15% on-site affordability of those 3,000 units. So that would be about 450 units. And within that, the affordability, we look at the various, it's called area median income or AMI levels. And so right now, looking at community has recommended that we include AMI levels as low as 20%. So right now, the area median income, that means that 50% of the area makes above this number, 50% below. And right now, AMI is in about the 80,000s. And so looking at that, if you were to have, let's say, 20% AMI levels, that means that households who make, let's say, 20,000, 30,000, et cetera, 40,000 or less would qualify for those various 20% AMI levels, 30% AMI, et cetera. So we did break down what we feel this project could support at the different AMI levels, but we are recommending 15% affordability at the various AMI levels up to 120%. That was a lot of jargon, like that's a lot.
In dollars. No, yeah, give us dollars.
What would the cost
So right now, okay, okay. The question is, what's the cost for an affordable unit? To construct an affordable unit, it costs about $700,000 to build one affordable unit. And so looking at that, the way that the money works is you have a lot of tax credits through the federal government, how to fund it to make it so that you look at what the project could put in, how much money needs to be secured. And so just doing all those numbers, what the staff has identified is that this project needs to fill a gap of $217,000 per door. So when you're looking at those numbers, that's how we came to the 15% level. So what's the cost? It depends. Are we talking about rentals? Are we talking about home ownership opportunities? There's a lot. So I don't know what the rent, the mortgage, or the unit to sell would be. That's still determined by the market, the future, et cetera. But that at least gives you a baseline of how these decisions are made and how the recommendations are made. So again, I know that's a lot of information. I could talk about a lot. So please continue the question. I'm going to answer the rest of his questions. In terms of the public comment period, that closed on April 27th to the environmental impact report. Once it's concluded, should this project continue to move forward, there will still be opportunities, though, for the public to make comments because there will be additional hearings by the Planning Commission, Design Review Board, et cetera, et cetera. So even though the formal response comment period has ended, there still are opportunities for the public to make comments. And then lastly, your question, could this happen, separate ballpark and mixed-use development? That would be speculative on my part. What I can say is the way that it is set up right now, the proposal, is that the Oakland A's are proposing that they will privately fund the stadium, the ballpark, and then the rest would be funded through a public-private partnership. So that would not just be the city of Oakland and the A's, it would involve various funding sources from the private sector, public sector, philanthropy, et cetera. So, like I said, I can't speculate if it could happen, separate the two, but that is the proposal. A's will privately fund the ballpark, and then the rest is through public-private partnerships. Other questions? I'm going to...
There's... Okay, I don't know if you answered Ms. Speakman. So I have some hands that were raised, and if you could just line up in front of them, or like to the side, I have Lycan, Bill, Teresa, and Melody. Oh, there's folks over here.
Sorry, I was blocking her view.
I'm sorry. Can you?
It's not to address her, it's just a statement.
Sure, come on.
Oh, that's okay.
You haven't spoken yet.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, go ahead. These are people who spoke already. This is too tall. No, it's okay. I'll stand on my phone. Hi, everyone.
You can adjust it too.
You can adjust it down. Just
Move it down.
I'm scared of these.
Sorry. Thank you. It's not that I'm scared of them, I just don't want it to. Hi, my name is Annie, and I live in District 3, and I love living here. But Veronica, you are so smart. Isn't she smart? Anyway, so smart. You explain it to people in a way where it computes with my brain. I've been retired from City College of San Francisco as a professor. I worked there for 23 years, and I retired in 2019, and I dodged the bullet because right after that, the pandemic came. I also work part-time at Marriott doing banquets. I put my way through school, so that's kind of my background. I don't have a political agenda here. I love baseball, so I'm hoping you all love baseball. And I do take BART over and get off at Montgomery Station and walk to AT&T Park. I love that park. So what I'm feeling here is I'd like to get commonality with people rather than divisiveness. A lot of people already have an opinion, but I want to be able to walk to a ballpark. As far as jobs, I can't think anything more for jobs. Community, I understand there are some roadblocks. But again, I think we really need to get down to, did we like when the Raiders left? Did we like when the Warriors left? And as far as the question of giving $6 million a year, is it better to get $6 million or nothing? So those type of things, I just want an agenda where we can kind of all get along. Try at least without, yeah. So the commonality here I have is, first of all, I used to go to Hunters Point with my parents shopping at the military base. And the second thing is, these are just little points, is I used to go to the day on the, yes, please, do you mind? I used to go to the day on the green at Oakland Coliseum when I was in high school. And that was one of the most fun experiences. So anyway, thank you so much. One thing for addressing the longshoremen, I understand, you know, your opposition to it, but I have to tell you, I live on Frontage Road, and your trucks are constantly parked in the middle, and they're also emitting a lot of emissions, just so you know. Thank you.
One thing I want to just quickly say is there on the project website, because this is really complicated. So the terms, I appreciate the feedback of being able to receive the information in a digestible way. It's complicated. On the website, we do have a glossary posted because it's really important to us that our community members and stakeholders are operating from a position of understanding. So we've taken these terms like the EIFD and explained it through this glossary. So please, with project staff, we do want to operate in as transparent of a way as possible. And certainly it starts with that website. We put it all out there on the website. So I encourage you to look at it.
So I'm going to go over here because these are the folks who haven't spoken yet. I have Annie spoke, Brian, Mercedes, and Derek. So Brian, I think you're next. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm going to take this down for a minute. I live over on Henry Street, about 200 feet from the freeway sound wall. And someone was talking about people complaining about the noise. Well, we've been complaining about the noise in the Port of Oakland for decades. Nothing ever happened about it, so I'm not sure it's a big threat to commerce. You know, my house rattles. I can hear the trains banging in the rail yard every night. So there are a lot of impacts from the port that the community feels that still need to be fixed. We've made progress in the environmental area. I'm with a local environmental justice group called the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. We've worked for about 20 years to reduce diesel emissions from ships, trains, and trucks and cargo handling equipment in West Oakland, so that we can have fewer kids go to the hospital with asthma and fewer people die of cancer and fewer people have respiratory illness. that has been a long struggle, and the industry comes along, kicking and screaming. One of the things I do want to point out, there's been a big thing about billionaires in this whole campaign, billionaires against the community. We're talking about economic development projects, whether it's a port, a ballpark, a corporate campus. These are huge investments by somebody. Obviously, they're to make money, but they're also to make jobs. They're also to do all sorts of economic development value in cities. They're always done by rich people. The Pacific Merchants Shipping Association is some of the richest families in the world, billionaire corporations. So, there's a billionaires versus billionaires element to this thing. And we shouldn't get caught in the middle of that. We're a community trying to get value out of a project. I was also part of the leadership group for our organization, was one of the community representative groups for the leadership team with the port, the city, A's, and the Chinatown Cultural Center that helped to guide and facilitate the community benefits agreement process. So I'm very familiar with that process and what's in the package. And I want to say, someone said these things aren't worth the paper they're written on or whatever. If processes that involve hundreds of people bringing their hearts and minds and their best thinking to the table to figure out what their community needs and deserves, if these processes aren't worth the paper they're written on, then I don't think community engagement or representative government is worth much either, because this is where these processes are where people have a chance to influence decision making. We never entered into that process saying yes or no on a ballpark. We said if there's going to be a massive economic development project in West Oakland, then it needs to deliver value to this community. But there's another thing I want to point out here, and then I'll be done. It wasn't the private sector that wrecked West Oakland. It wasn't the private sector that redlined West Oakland. It wasn't the private sector that took land to build a freeway and ripped through the middle of this community, tearing out businesses and homes. It wasn't the private sector that tore up and tore down 7th Street that used to be a vibrant Black-owned business community. It wasn't the private sector that tore down the house Jack London used to live in to build a post office, distribution center. These were public sector actions using public sector eminent domain power. And the people whose homes were purchased, and mostly people's homes were purchased against their will, they got whatever somebody said the market value was at that time. They didn't get the appreciation value over generations that some people have experienced. So when people talk about the A's should throw $1 billion at community benefits, I don't know if that's actually true. Because it isn't the A's or some corporation that wrecked West Oakland. It was racist land use policies that wrecked West Oakland. So the public should help to pay for these community benefits. This community deserves reparations from the government, and the government is represented by property taxes and sales taxes, all the money that governments generate. And it can't be done just by the city of Oakland. It has to be done by all of the government agencies that have had a hand in wrecking this community. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mercedes Rodriguez, and I'd like to thank Carol for hosting this meeting today for the community, because we really needed something like this to bring the people together so that she can understand exactly what's going on in West Oakland and our community. I've been in Oakland since 1974, basically in West Oakland, and I lived in the Acorn Apartments, and they tore down a whole block between 8th and 10th Market and Filbert, and they built 71 single-family homes, and I bought one of those homes. My house is right on Market Street. I'm on the Transportation Steering Committee for the AB 617, and also that's the air quality, and also with the community benefits for the Oakland A's at Howard Terminal. And my main concern is the impact that it's going to have on our community to have that ballpark there. That ballpark, it takes me 7 minutes to walk from my house to Howard Terminal. I could see it from walking right in the street. The transportation is going to be terrible for our community. It's going to be really bad. Right now, before this pandemic happened, there were cars parked all up and down Market Street for people that worked in downtown Oakland, and a lot of those people worked for the city of Oakland. We couldn't even park in front of our houses. One of the things that they're going to be doing for our community that's close to Howard Terminal, they're going to be requiring residential parking permits. So that means that anybody that has a vehicle registered to their home will have to pay a residential parking permit for each vehicle. If they have visitors, they will have to pay for those visitors as well. As a result of the parking Howard Terminal, those residential parking permits, the time limit is not going to be from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. It's going to be until 11 o'clock at night. And more than likely, it's going to be for 7 days a week. I like the Oakland A's. I've been working with the Oakland A's for 3 years prior to the community benefits agreement. Great people, okay? They do a lot of things for the community. That ballpark at Howard Terminal is not going to benefit our community. It's not going to benefit our community. The people that's in my neighborhood, my homeowners that are for it, because there are some for it, what they're saying is, okay, I'm for it because I know my housing, my property value is going to go up, and I'm moving out of Oakland. I told that to Taj Toshambi. He represents the Oakland A's for our community. He said, Mercedes, that's not what we want. We don't want the people to leave. But that's what they're thinking. They're going to leave. They're going to sell their property. Their value is going up, and they're going to move away. Transportation is a major part of this deal. That's why I'm on transportation. Looking at the DEIR, there are really no mitigations for the transportation that's going to happen as a result of that parking, that ballpark. It's not going to happen. As a part of the steering committee for transportation, I came up with about 20 recommendations on my own. We had maybe 15 or 20 people on the steering committee. All of those recommendations were kind of like boiled down to about 20 altogether. So a lot of the stuff that we had for recommendations were not considered. Yes. Okay. I just want to say too that the recommendations that we have put forth are not really, well, the A's are not paying for all of the recommendations. They're not paying for any of them. So just wanted to let you know, our recommendations are there. The CBA is supposed to be for the A's to pay for it, but they're not paying for anything. Thank you.
If you all want to stand under the tree and ask questions or move your chairs to under the tree, I realize it's getting warm. So I'm gonna, just because I don't want anybody to get heat stroke, I'm gonna lessen the time. So if you can please be concise. I have Derek? Okay, Helen, Derek, and David. Yeah, so please take care of yourself because it's getting warm out.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Helen Duffy, and I live here in West Oakland as of 1990. And I wanted to talk about the fact that these city council members are being put in a pretty untenable position, in my view, because, you know, everybody loves the A's. We all love the A's, and a lot of our neighbors are going to be thinking about this strictly on let's keep the A's at any cost. And we really can't be emotional about this. This is too important to the future of our city. There are too many unanswered questions. There are too many murky things about this deal that are going to be very hard to fix if this term sheet goes through. And we really need to urge the council to go slow. And if that means we lose this deal, well, so be it. They are trying to, the A's, I'm sorry to say, or I should say the Fisher family are really trying to ram this through. That's why we all got mailers this week on, oh, you know, save this poor family's 2-bit job. And you're going to do that by, so anyway, I just want to say, we really need a lot more firm and better terms, and we can't get it this week. And please support, please oppose the term sheet and support anybody who can stand up against the A's, against Fisher.
Good morning, everyone. I thought I might. Name? Excuse me. Thank you. I'm Derek Muhammad, resident of West Oakland, 8th and Wood, and it's a pleasure to be here. I thought I might have some fancy speech to make, but I do not. I simply want to say that this is not a development that the Black community specifically and any other community in general should be supporting.
The mic closer.
I said that this is a project that the Black community and all other communities for that matter should not be supporting. Should not be supporting. I participated in the community benefits process under the economic development cohort. And I can tell you, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, it was smoke and mirrors, it was a farce, it was a show, and it was a collaboration between the Oakland A's, the Port of Oakland, and the City of Oakland to put on a show to make the community of West Oakland and Chinatown feel like we were going to get justice, get some kind of benefit out of this project, and that is not true. A benefit, brothers and sisters, is that which puts you on a higher ground, puts the whole of the community on a higher ground. Now, this project has certainly put others on higher ground because there are nonprofit organizations who have been purchased by the Oakland A's vis-a-vis monetary contributions to their program. Yes, that's true. So their vote and support for this project has been purchased. Now, I can't really, I don't want to take up time trying to speak to every issue in the community benefit process. I want to focus on the economic development process, which I was a part of. And the main thing is jobs. You hear the building trades and the labor council talking about jobs, construction jobs. There are no construction jobs on that project for Black people. None. Now, they have a few members in the building trades who quite naturally will be working on the project, but there's no gateway for new enrollment into trade apprenticeship programs, none whatsoever. And when we recommended that the Oakland Athletics mandate to the trades that they should open up their apprenticeship programs to the Black community, and by the way, that would have cost them nothing. It'll cost them nothing. They denied. They made no commitment. There's no commitment to hiring African Americans in the operational jobs. There's no commitment to small businesses. There's no commitment to this community. This is and I know somebody said it's not a city project. It is a city project because the city is supporting this project, and that has the effect of making it a city project. The city is highly invested into what comes out of this process. They want the project, so it's a city project. And so this is state-sanctioned BS, state-sanctioned marginalization of our community, state-sanctioned displacement of Black people, which is an issue we're confronted with right now, state-sanctioned gentrification, state-sanctioned destruction of an economic operation that already exists in the Port of Oakland. Don't support this. I wish I could be more eloquent and more fanciful in my speaking. Don't support it. Bottom line, don't support it, and don't let anybody else on that community benefit program tell you otherwise. It's a joke, smoke and mirrors, a farce. They should get an Academy Award for acting, all of them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is David.
Don't fall for the IFD mumbo jumbo. Don't fall for that.
Well, you're speaking in tongues over there. Make sure there's an interpreter here. I'm gonna help you with that. My name is David Peters.
Man, don't direct nothing personal to me, partner.
Well, you know, partner, just, you know, I didn't say nothing while you was talking. I didn't say nothing while you was talking, you know. I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm here.
We ain't
Direct
on those today.
questions and comments to me. To me. Thank you.
My name is David Peters. I was on the Howard Terminal CBA Steering Committee. I co-chaired History and Culture topic cohort. I'm also on the board of Friends of Hoover Grant Public Library and also involved with a nonprofit affordable housing development. How many of y'all remember when Acorns was like flat ground? Everybody remember that? Some people remember that, right? Remember when they brought these freeways over here in the BART train and displaced Black folks by their tens of thousands in their homes and in their businesses. And so if I look at the planned development that's going on in this community right now, from one end of 7th Street to the next, whether it's panoramic interest and that $1 million CBA they paid, what's going on at Mandela Station with the transit-oriented development, which will have, I think, 30% affordable housing. Rad Urban's stacked modular thing they're putting up on 5th Street, which I think has 8%, the same as Panoramic. Or if it's the one over on 5th Street that I think you picked up out of the council process supposed to talk about 8% affordable housing. None of the current developments that are happening in this community right now provide any sort of community benefit to this community. $6 million, $1 million, 12 cents, we ain't getting nothing. And so I am here because I believe that this government, city, state, local, county, federal, owes a reparative duty to Black folks that have been in this community for generations like my family has. So we've been here for a while over on Brockhurst Street. And I've seen how the Oakland Redevelopment Agency, through their policy, have chosen to devastate this community. And they have no mechanism by which to give us any sort of reparative investment. So when I look at this community investment, and I believe that community has the wisdom of their lived experience to determine what it is they need and want. And I would challenge anybody who says that this community is not bright enough, is not hardworking enough, is not learned enough in what they know and from their daily lives to determine what the 144 recommendations are that were put forth by this community benefits agreement. Anybody disagree that community has the power and the knowledge to determine for themselves what their community benefits should be? So now becomes what we would do. You know, the city, the state, the government, I'll just say government, owes a debt. And we have an opportunity to use not this community benefits agreement, but I'll call it a reparative community investment agreement to begin to address the charter that the community benefits agreement steering committee was given. And that is to address the racial disparities documented in the city of Oakland's indicators report and to narrow those gaps. And so what did we do? You know, we're looking for 450 units of affordable housing. And I've heard some people talk about they don't like affordable housing for whatever reasons they have. You know, I think the high cost of affordable housing is an issue, and that we have to figure out, make hard decisions how to solve that. And so units on site, more importantly, and there's two things in the latest city proposal that changed from the prior proposal that I think that I hope you would address. One is the housing cohort specifically asked for $50 million for ownership for longtime resident and displaced Black West Oaklanders. That has now changed in the proposal to $50 million for affordable housing. We are trying, the community put that in there to try and address the racial wealth gap. We need to build generational wealth in this community to keep Black people in these communities, because we have been here when didn't nobody want to live here. All right, and so I'll say that one, and I'll give you, there's a lot of concern about transportation. Chinatown has an additional addendum to the most current proposal that carves out some specific space for them. That carves out some specific space for them on a transportation oversight committee, and also to protect their arts and culture. And I believe that West Oakland representatives should stand in the same place. And so I say all that to say that this is a radical opportunity to change government, to come to municipal government and demand municipal government to reinvest in our communities through these property tax structures that mimic what we had back in the redevelopment days. And that we should require, no matter what, they could build the damn thing on the moon. I'm trying to see these $6 million a year pour into some Black-led projects in this community that defend our arts, our culture, our communities, and our benefits.
Hi everyone, my name is Regina. I'm a resident of West Oakland. I have some questions, but I also, I'm also just really confused why we're settling for $6 million for a $7.3 billion project. That is just nothing. And especially, I've been canvassing West Oakland a lot lately for the Bernie campaign, for Carol. The number one thing that everyone has told us is that we need housing, that we need like real affordable housing. I live with like 5 people in my house, and I'm like 30 and married. We need like places that we can afford. So many of these jobs are going to be low-wage jobs. No one's going to be able to live in those condos if you have to make $80,000 a year to be able to live there. Who makes $80,000 a year and works at a restaurant? No one. Like, if we're going to be asked to pay $855 million to build this housing, why aren't we just building it as public housing instead of giving it to a billionaire? John Fisher also is the owner of the KIPP charter schools. He's like destroying our schools.
That's right.
He's white. Why are we giving away public land for $6 million? I don't know. But anyway, that was what I wanted to say. But I also have a question around this fund of the community. Well, first off, it sounds like the $7.3 billion, the IFD, would only go to that area, right? For capital improvements?
Talk into the mic, please.
The question is,
So would that money only stay there? So that rich community is only going to get richer, and it's not going to go out to the rest of Oakland, right?
So the question is, do the resources that come from the IFD stay inside that geographic location of the IFD?
Well, I have a follow-up, maybe just to make it quicker. And also, what is the percentage for the fund that would actually be able to, make jobs and stuff? And who is going to manage it? But anyway, those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
So the question was the money that's generated by the EIFD, will it stay in the district? And the answer is that with this proposal, that money would be used to pay for the infrastructure that's required to build out this project. instead of money coming from the general fund, etc., this would be project generated money that would pay for the project itself. In terms of the community fund, right now we would really rely on community to work with us to establish the governance of the community fund, the structure, the implementation, the oversight, etc. So we're envisioning that certainly people who've been involved with the community benefits process, and certainly people who have not, to work with city staff. We do right now, nothing is set in stone because this is still in its conceptual stage, but something similar to the steering committee. The community members would work with us to think about, how should this money be spent, what projects, and again, using those recommendations that the community came up with from the very beginning to guide that community fund development process, etc. So right now, these are still just ideas because with this term sheet, these are just general terms. If this gets passed, if the project moves forward, then the next phase would be working out the minutia details.
I just want a point of clarification. I think the first question that she asked you was if the money is going to go out to the enhanced infrastructure district or just the project site itself. And you did not answer that question.
So the question that I'm being asked for clarification is if the money from the EIFD would just go to the project site or remain in the district. And in this case, it's the same thing. So that EIFD, the district that staff is recommending is the Howard Terminal site. So that would be the project area, that would be the district, and it is the project site. And so the money, that tax increment that's generated would be used to pay for the project, the infrastructure and other components of it, instead of dipping into the general fund, et cetera, putting other public monies at risk.
I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I do want to say I'm giving thanks for the breeze that's coming through. And we have about 5 more minutes, so I'm going to take this one last question. And I'm going to stay here in the corner where there's a little more shade and answer 4 questions that folks have.
We're not going to get questions for Veronica because her presentation was awfully.
This was a period to ask questions for Veronica.
No, this was the people that hadn't spoken earlier.
Right. To do both though. But the point is I'm going to say we had a specific time frame for this event. I'm not going to go over that time frame for the whole group. But if there are people who do have additional questions, I will stay as long as I can. Veronica will stay as long as she can in the corner where there's shade, so we can have more conversation. But I don't want to keep people longer than we had scheduled. So I'm going to take this last real question for our time frame, and then we're going to move on.
All right, thank you, Council Member. I thank Council Member Carroll for having this most important conversation to hit to the voices of the people that's impacted. Thank you, Taylor Memorial, Pastor Jenkins as well for hosting this space. So I'm Sabir Lockett. I was also a member of the steering committee, Economic Development and Jobs topic cohort, and helped to develop a lot of the proposals that came out of that city's process. And I'm just gonna say, I believe the A's was completely disingenuous in the process, and that they had, ulterior motives and really was not sincere at meeting the community needs. And I also want to push back against the narrative that somehow it's the city's problem that if the A's leave or not. I think it's their problem. They created this scenario where they lied to the community, said they're going to pay for the community benefits, then takes through this whole process and waste everybody's time, and then say, well, if the city don't adhere to these term sheet items that they didn't even fully flush out, even with the mayor and the city administration. They just kind of circumnavigated the whole process and threw it into the city council saying, y'all need to vote on these terms or we're out. And so we need to really stand up for our local leaders to support them in the decisions that they need to make, that they was forced to make by a disingenuous developer who never planned to pay for community benefits agreements in the first place. And I am uniquely concerned because I'm also a D3 resident. And I'm also commissioner on an Army base who oversee community benefits policies for local hires and jobs, oversight, enforcement, and to ensure that CBAs are actually benefiting our community as far as local hires are concerned. And we think that there's baselines that the A's should be agreeing to in this term sheet. And the term sheet on the 20th basically is the baseline in which negotiations will start. So that should include a minimum of 35% affordable housing, with them taking up, you know what I'm saying, the financial responsibilities and not putting it on the tax revenues of the city. That's an illusionary tax. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. It's just the IFD saying like, okay, yeah, we're going to tax and this money is going to come into the community, but we don't know if that actually is going to happen. You know, there should be local hire job policies for formerly incarcerated folks, you know, chronically unemployed people, you know, without, you know, high school diplomas that's directly impacted in our communities because that development is in our community. And any development that equals displacement should not be upheld. You know what I'm saying? And it should only be upheld to the degree that they meet the community needs and leave the community in a better place it was before they came into it. And that's their responsibility. We believe, like, again, I have a 2-year-old son, so I'm concerned. I live on 7 in Peralta. So when they start breaking down that ground and them caps and then environmental pollutions, what are remediation plans that need to be in place to address those issues? We already have our kids in West Oakland growing up with asthma, and like we have the worst like air conditions in the world. So they need to have a clear remediation plan about the environmental impacts. And that's something that we need to address and we need to hold them to, you know, regardless of what they say they're going to do or not do on the 20th. And I'm also a member of the Oakland United Coalition, who was in direct negotiations with the A's prior to the city process, and they were disingenuous in that process. And then we engaged in the city process still, and these are baseline items that we're acting about: 35% affordable housing, local hire job policies so our community have access to stay in their homes and not have this gentrification, living wage employment, formerly incarcerated access to job quality, access, and mobility. These are very simple things. Environmental impact concerns. Every development that didn't happen, major development at the Army base in 2012, at the port in 2016, has agreed to these baseline policies. So what makes the A's exempt from doing so? And this project that also covered the life term of this project. So that's something I would like to express to Councilmember Fife, is that, you know, the community need to have our council members back, first of all, and we need to understand that it's not her problem. You know what I'm saying? That the A's was disingenuous and forced this on them, but the community support the things that's going to leave us in a better stance. You know what I'm saying? And they are not exempt from existing policy that exists that major developers have already agreed to within the city of Oakland. And we have to set the standard that this is what's going to be moving forward. And you have to come out your pocket, because the IFD money that they're talking about, again, that's illusionary tax funding that don't nobody know what's going to happen with that. And they said they want to pay for the CBA, so where they at now?
So thank you for coming out. Good night and God bless. I'm kidding. So it is after 11 o'clock. We said that we would go from 9 to 11. I once again appreciate everyone for coming. I'm going into that corner over there. I'm going to ask my volunteers to start stacking up chairs. Unless you want to come meet me, bring your chair over in the corner for folks who want to stay late. But once again, thank you. We're gonna get through this, y'all.
Turn in the feedback form.
The gentleman that
Carol,
brought
tell
up
them
that
to
we
turn
should
in the
have
survey.
civic pride and back something like the A's. I think our civic pride is that we solve the housing for
Survey,
unhoused
Carol.
residents. That's the kind of pride we need.
I'm sorry,
that we're making things better for our community, not supporting gladiator sports for the billionaires.
Okay.
If you have not filled out your survey, please do so and leave it at the table, at the front table. If you want to email us because you don't feel like standing around, please email district3, the number 3 at oaklandca.gov. I should have brought water. I did not know it was going to be this warm, this early. But District 3 with the number 3 at oaklandca.gov. Oh yeah, meet me in the corner.